Hey everybody, how you doing? So my name is Nils Jensen with IdahoPulse.com, and so today I wanted to kind of go over with you my 1 year anniversary of living in the great state of Idaho and moving to the Treasure Valley area. I wanted to start off by going through kind of some details of the Treasure Valley in general, in case you're not too familiar with what the Treasure Valley is, where it is, why it's called the Treasure Valley, what the major cities are, and that kind of thing. If you're just kind of new to Idaho in general, go over just a quick overview of what it is. But I also, this video specifically, we're going to get into the nuts and the bolts of the 10 things that I really don't like about the Treasure Valley or Idaho in general. And these aren't reasons why you shouldn't move here. These are just things that I found to be things that either A, I liked better about California, or B, I didn't like about living here after 1 year. So we moved here with my family, my 2 kids, and my wife. We bought a house out in Star, Idaho in July. We bought the house in August. We moved in 2021, and it's now October of 2022. So we've had just over a year of living here. And so in a year, we've gone through all the seasons. We've experienced a lot of people. The kids have gone to school. We've interacted with lots of parents, lots of friends. We've made friends. And so we've kind of experienced an entire cycle of what it would be like to live here. And so there's a lot of things that you learn in 1 year. So coming from a place like California, which a lot of people come from that live here, I think a lot of people may have the same kind of experiences that I have. And so if you're thinking about moving here, or maybe you have family that's thinking about moving here and you're trying to get them advice, feel free to have them give us a call, or you can give us a call. You can email us through IdahoPulse.com on our website. We have a contact us page, or you can just leave a comment on the video and we'll get back to you as soon as possible. And if you have any questions that we didn't get into, we can definitely help you out with that. So anyways, so let's get into it. I wanted to kind of go over the top 10 things that I do not like about the Treasure Valley and Idaho in general. Okay, so before we get into the top 10, I wanted to kind of go over just some basics of what the Treasure Valley is in Idaho. So the Treasure Valley is what they would consider to be high desert. So the elevation here is roughly 2,500 feet, and the Treasure Valley is an area that encompasses roughly 9 counties, but the 2 main counties that have the most population is going to be Ada County, which is where I live. I live on the edge of Ada County in Star, and that encompasses Boise and Meridian and all these major places. And then we have Canyon County, which encompasses Nampa and Caldwell and Middleton. And so there's a bunch of smaller ones that are in the Treasure Valley, but those are the two main ones. So in Ada County, we have roughly 400,000 people in the county. And in Canyon County, we have about 190,000 people in that county. And in all of the Treasure Valley, we have about 745,000 people. Okay, so the first thing that came to my mind is there is definitely a general feeling of dislike or disdain towards Californians in Idaho in general. This is probably earned in some regard because, California doesn't have the greatest reputation and people are flooding here from California for a reason. And people in Idaho, they know they live in a great place. They've lived here. Some of them have lived there their whole lives. Some have lived here 20, 30 years. They came here before it was fashionable to come here. They came here way before it was populated, way before it was busy. The city I live in, Star, had one blinking stoplight 20 years ago. We didn't even have a reason to really put a stoplight in. I mean, there was just nothing here. And a lot of people that were here then, I've talked to them, they've lived here way beyond that. So seeing this change, it's like you're bringing California to Idaho. And as you can imagine, those people probably aren't super happy about that. Another thing that coming from Southern California to here, it's cold for a long time. And when I say cold, I mean it could be way worse and it could be better. So this is kind of a middle ground, I think, as far as the temperature goes. If you're going around the United States and looking at places to live, this place definitely is not the worst. But it's significantly cold from around November, somewhere in November, depending on the year. And it really doesn't let up until April, maybe May, depending on the year. And so it's just every day it just hits you with the cold and cold and cold. And while I still maintain that there are some bonuses and some good things about the weather, if you watch my 10 things I like, I have the weather in there as a thing I like, which seems to be contradictory. I think that the difference is, I'm used to, in the springtime, we have some really nice days, and so we'll have 2 months in Southern California of really cold weather, not really cold, but cold for us. We're talking in the 50s, and then it kind of lets up and we're in the 70s pretty quick. Here we're in the 30s and the 40s during the day from somewhere in the end of November all the way through to April, maybe even May, and it starts to get up into the 50s and 60s after that. And so I found that to be just a little bit shocking. I wasn't quite expecting that, even though I should have been. So that's something I wanted to put in there, just because if you're not a cold weather person and you just don't want to be in cold, obviously this is not the place for you. So one thing that I experienced myself, and I'm not a person that hurts himself a lot and gets to go to the ambulance and goes to the hospital, but I have experienced going to the hospital a few times in California. And when we moved here, I hurt myself soon after moving here in the beginning of this year. I tore my Achilles tendon, which I've never done anything like that before. And so dealing with the healthcare system here, I realized that it's extremely either antiquated or it's overwhelmed, or I don't know what it is, but it took months for me to actually get an actual doctor to give me a scan, an MRI. And so I started talking to other people who had interactions with the healthcare system here. And they had similar stories. There wasn't really a lot different. It was just it took a long time to get in. And then we have friends that still had California healthcare because they still work in California. And their daughter hurt their arm. She got flown to California, and she was in an MRI that day. She had surgery that day, and she was back home 2 days later. And so I was still limping around trying to wait for my appointment to get an MRI. Another thing is the infrastructure for Idaho is not quite caught up to the amount of people that have come in. There's been a lot of people, like for instance, Star, just because I live here, I know a lot about it. Star, about 5 years ago, had about 5,000 people, some odd, and now there's about 14,000 people 5 years later. And so I think they grew from 9,000 people to 14,000 people in just like a year and a half or something like that. And so the roads aren't exactly set up for all these communities. These cornfields and these places that were growing crops got mowed down. They got sold off to developers. They built houses in the last 5 years. And so there's just a massive amount of people that are using these roads. They're having to tear them out to put pipes in for communities, constantly having roadblocks and detours. And the problem is these smaller farm towns, they only have one, maybe two ways in and 1 to 2 ways out. And so until you get to the roadblock, you're not sure it's even there unless a friend tells you, because Google just doesn't update fast enough. So one thing to consider is if you're moving to this area, you have to be patient. You have to definitely be willing to kind of put up with the fact that it's definitely not going to be smooth sailing for a while. They're going to be building roads constantly. They're going to be expanding infrastructure, building new business parks and new housing communities. So that's something to consider. Is definitely this place is growing significantly, which is a good thing, but it also comes with some growing pains. So another thing that's on my list is the salaries for people working here has not caught up to the cost of homes here. And so that's one of the reasons why, getting back to my first thing, which about them not liking Californians, is Californians sold their house at extremely high values, took their equity that they had gotten, took it into Idaho, and just blew the prices up. And so we're in a situation where housing prices and the cost of buying a house is not exactly feasible for somebody that makes $15 an hour here in Idaho, and that's kind of the average rate right now if you're going to work at most places. So if you're used to working, let's say you're a professional and you worked in California, let's say you made $120,000 a year. If you're looking to work down the street or in Boise, that same position may land you $70,000 per year, which is still a very good living. But if you're buying an $800,000, $900,000 house, that might not work out for you. It just depends on your situation. Another thing on my list is something that I never really thought of, and it really isn't a big deal. It's just kind of one of those nuances that you have to get used to, but it's definitely on my I'm not a fan of side if I had to put it on the side. This is going to be the hours in the day and the sunlight in the day. So we have summer solstice just like everybody else, but the difference is that because of where we are in the country and we're on the northern end, we are experiencing, like, say for instance in June, we're going to have the sun come up at 5:30 in the morning. It's peeling through the window, and then at nighttime it doesn't go down until around 10 o'clock at night, and it starts going down. It's still light out. So that's definitely something that you should consider. Is there's very long days in the summer, which that's fine. It's the winter, you have the opposite. So in the wintertime, you'll be taking the kids to school at 8 o'clock in the morning to start, and it's still pitch dark outside. Another thing, which isn't really a big deal for a lot of people, but just something to consider, Idaho has a law that liquor cannot be sold at a supermarket or any place that's not a state designated liquor store that's licensed to be. And there's only so many per city. So depending on how large the city is, there may be one, there may be two, there may be four. But if you're somebody who likes to go out and get a bottle of rum to make drinks or vodka or whatever, you're going to have to go to a state-run liquor store, and so the pricing may be a little higher. You may get less of it, and when you're going to Costco and you're used to getting your alcohol there and getting a better price, they just don't have it there. So this one kind of goes along with the same thing I was talking about earlier with the road closures. So because we're growing, the infrastructure hasn't grown, the amount of road closures that you experience is sizable and significant. There, for instance, we had our son going to a school in Meridian, and we live in Star, and so there's really just literally there's two ways to get there that make sense, unless you go way around and just go in an awkward loop. There was two ways to get there. One of the roads for the first 5 months we lived here was closed. One lane was closed, and they had, for about a mile or so, they had construction where it closed one lane down. They had tractors going across. They had a person standing at the beginning of one side and then the end of the other side, and you had to kind of filter to one lane and one lane. And it just took forever. And so then when that was fixed, then they did the other road, and then they closed that one down. And so it's one of those things where, again, you just have to kind of put up with it, I think, and just kind of get used to it. It's not something that's going to be like this forever, but it will be for the foreseeable future, where they're going to be expanding roads, constantly shutting things down and rerouting people. So it's something to consider also. Another thing about this area is, and we'll show you on a map, there's only one freeway, the 84 freeway, which runs through the southern end of the Treasure Valley somewhat, on the southern side of Meridian and through Nampa and then into Boise. So that freeway that runs through isn't going to be something that you're going to use a lot unless you kind of live closer to the freeway. Like, say you live in the central area of Nampa, southern end of Meridian, or you live at the southern end of Boise. You're not going to be taking the freeway a ton. We kind of live at the northern end of Star, and so for us to drive to the freeway, it takes about 25 to 30 minutes, depending on traffic and stoplights and stuff. It takes us about that long to get to the freeway. And then from there, you can jet wherever you want. I can get to the airport in probably 5, 6, 7 minutes from there. Or you can take the inner roads, like State Street, for instance, and you can take that and you can go all the way down and hit northern Boise in probably faster than if you took the freeway. So, all right, so the last one's kind of funny. It's not really super relevant anymore because they are putting one in, but in Idaho, the entire state, we don't have an In-N-Out burger. And coming from California, or even if you live in Nevada, or you live in Utah, or one of these places that has In-N-Out burgers and you're used to that like we were, it's kind of a drag. Whenever we go visit California, visit family and stuff, we always go to In-N-Out because, we miss it, and we've had it our whole lives ever since we've been living in California. They are actually putting one in. I think there may be another one slated somewhere. So they haven't broken ground on it. It may be another year till it's functional. I'm not sure. But there isn't one here right now. So if you're one of those people that has to have your In-N-Out burger fixed, don't worry, it's coming. But it just may not be here right now. So something I wanted to just round out the bottom 10 of things that I don't like about living in Idaho. So. All right, so now we've just gone through the top 10 things that I'm not a huge fan of living in the Treasure Valley or in Idaho in general. Hopefully this video is entertaining or educational for you, or maybe both. If you have any questions, again, feel free to contact us through idahopulse.com. You can email us directly through there. You can contact us via text message. You can contact us via telephone call on the phone number listed. or you can leave comments on the YouTube page. If you can like and subscribe to our channel, that helps us, and we're going to constantly put out educational stuff about mortgage stuff, about the area. We have tour videos, as I mentioned, about driving around in different cities. If you're thinking about moving to, say, Meridian, and you're like, that's my home, that's where I'm going to go, check out our video. We kind of take you around and kind of show you around a little bit, show you the roads. If you're looking at it on a map, even if it's one of those topographical maps and you can see like satellite picture, it's still not nearly as good as being on the ground driving through and kind of getting commentary from someone who's actually lived in the area. So otherwise, I hope you enjoyed the video. Check out our other videos. Hopefully they help you out. If you do need real estate help, of course we do that. So feel free to contact me if you have any questions about real estate or anything about what's going on in the mortgage industry. I can't give you financial advice or mortgage interest rate advice and stuff like that, just because that's not my deal. However, I might be able to point you in the direction of someone who actually can help you, who works with people in the Treasure Valley area. So anyways, thanks for watching the video, and we hope to see you around Idaho sometime soon. Thanks.